Dear viewers, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be learning about goods and service tax rates. In this video, there's a discussion on introduction to GST rates, revenue neutral rate, then HSN, that is harmonized system of nomenclature, service accounting codes, then zero rated supply, exempt supply, nil rate supply, non-taxable supply, abatements and its benefits. Kindly watch the video till the end, like it, share among your friends and subscribe to the channel. If you already subscribed to the channel, kindly ignore the message. If you have any comments about the video, please put your comments in the comment box. Now let's move to the presentation. So now let us discuss about the GST rates here. The Goods and Service Tax Council is the apex authority which decides the rates of the taxes. So it makes recommendations to the central government and the states relating to the different aspects of the GST, such as the rates of GST, exemptions, threshold limits, returns, etc. Then the central government decides the GST rates on the recommendation of the GST Council. So the major authority is vested with the GST Council for the purpose of imposing the tax rates. So whatever the recommendations made by the GST Council, the same will be discussed in the cabinet meeting of the central government, and central government will decide the rates of the GST. The central government decides the classification of the rates in India on the basis of the synchronized nomenclature, then service accounting codes here. Harmonized system of nomenclature and service accounting codes. So the dependent of the change in the system of the taxation it on the revenue neutral rate. Here this revenue neutral rate is a structure of different rates established in order to match the current revenue generation with the revenue under new tax regime. So it is the tax rate which ensures that the revenue collected by new tax regime is the same that collected by the previous one. In other words, to say, the revenue neutral rate tries to match the collection of the revenue under new tax regime with the earlier tax regime, so that that will not make a differentiation in the amount of the collection of the tax. Then now let's look into in detail about the harmonized system of nomenclature. Here this is it was conceived and developed by the World Customs Organization with the vision of classifying the goods from all over the world in a systematic and a logical manner. And why the purpose of introducing this harmonized system of nomenclature? To ensure the proper exports and the imports. So here this WCO which classifies the goods into various categories so that the rate will be determined by each country. It is this HSN classification, that is harmonized system of nomenclature, is a 6-digit uniform code that classifies the products and is accepted worldwide. The basic purpose of determining this nomenclature to determine the quantum of the products exported or imported here, and it has a 6 digits which is universally applicable. The concept and the set of defined rules used for identifying the goods for the purpose of taxation is called nothing but the HSN code here. So now this HSN code will be applicable in India after implementation of the GST. And India has already been using HSN system in the central excise and customs regime. So now let's look into the certain provisions of the HSN here. There's a need to mention HSN code of the items in a tax invoice under GST, and there is no need to mention the HSN code if the annual turnover of a small taxpayer with an annual turnover of up to rupees 1.5 crores. The taxpayers having a turnover with more than 1.5 crores and less than 5 crores, they have to mention 2 digits of the HSN code. Whereas if the taxpayer is having more than 5 crores of turnover, then he has to mention 4 digits of HSN here. Then the next comes here service accounting codes. This is similar to the HSN only. The HSN applicable for only goods, whereas this SAC, that is the service accounting codes, is applicable to services. So this is adopted for all services. This why this service code has been introduced, because earlier there was a service tax which is now subsumed in a GST. So for that reason here this service accounting codes are introduced. Service accounting codes are the codes issued by the Central Board for Excise and Customs to uniformly classify each service under GST. Each service has a unique SAC, that is a service accounting code, and these codes can be used in invoices by the supplier for the services he has delivered. So it is also a 6 numeric digits. The first 2 digits are same for all the services, that is it always starts with a 99. The next 2 digits represent the major nature of the service. The next 2 digits represent the detailed services. Suppose, say for example, if you take the hotel industry as a service, then in such case, whether it is housekeeping, or is it say for example the other amenities providing, or maybe like the laundry services, or maybe like buffet services, etc. So all these things will be given a specific number. Similarly, suppose say for example, if it is a construction service, so it starts on 99. Assume that if it is a 54 is added to this, so it is a composite supply of works contract as defined in clause 119 of section 2 of the CGST Act of 2017. Then again, the construction of the service of a single dwelling or multi-dwelling or multi-storied residential building, or it may be like a commercial, like say for example construction of a highway, streets, roads, dams, railways, airfield or runways, bridges and tunnels, etc. So all these are specific for each other here. So now let's look into the zero rated supply. Here, what is this zero rated supply? In order to understand that, we need to depend upon the definition as given by the section 16 of the IGST Act of 2017. So as per section 16 subsection 1 of the Interstate Goods and Service Tax Act of 2017, which integrated goods and service tax defines zero rate supply as export of goods or services or both. Say for example, when the goods are sold from India to US, it is nothing but the exportation of the goods. Or say for example, if Indian technicians render service to the American country, so it is nothing but exportation of the service. So here it is exportation of the goods or services or both, or supply of goods or services or both to a special economic zone developer or a special economic unit. Say for example, there is a special economic zone by the company called as ACUS near Hattargi. When a supplier supplies goods to that SEZ unit to develop, or for say for example for the manufacturing of the aeroplane parts, etc. So that is zero rated supply. When you look into the provisions of the zero rate supply here, the supplier can avail the input tax credit. It means that the credit of input tax may be availed by making zero rate supplies, notwithstanding that that such supply be an exempt supply. Say for example, if the supplier has supplied goods to SEZ unit, and whatever he has paid tax, that can be adjusted at the time of making payment of the tax by him. So the supplier who is involved in a zero rated supply can claim input tax credit. Then this is in addition to the taxable supply. The value of zero rate supplies shall be added along with the taxable supplies for apportionment of the ITC. Say for example, the supplier is involved in a zero rate supply as well as the taxable supply. So whatever he has to pay the GST on the taxable supply can be reduced by the amount of the tax paid by him at the time of the purchase of the zero rate supply here. Then the zero rate supplier is eligible for a refund also. A registered person making a zero rated supply shall be eligible to claim refund under the GST here. He may supply goods or services or both under bond or a letter of undertaking or subject to such conditions, safeguards and procedures as may be prescribed without payment of integrated tax and claim refund of unutilized input tax credit. So he may be involved in the interstate supply or intrastate supply. For both he is eligible to claim a refund here. Then there is no applicability of the principle of unjust enrichment. That means here he will not be debarred from the profit making here. The principle of unjust enrichment shall not be applicable in case of refund of the taxes paid wherever such refund is on account of the zero rate supply. Then sanctioning of the refund amount. If a supplier is involved in the zero rate supply, he will be allowed for 90% of the total refund claimed on account of the zero rate supply of the goods or services, and the remaining 10% can be refunded later after the due verification of the documents furnished by the applicant authority. That means here, if a supplier who is involved in a zero rate supply, then he is eligible to claim the 90% of the refund, and in order to claim the remaining 10%, he has to produce the necessary documents which will be verified by the GST authorities, and thereafter he will be sanctioned with the remaining 10%. So in a nutshell, we can say that 100% refund is possible in case of the zero rated supply. Now let's look into the exempt supply. Here, as the name itself is exempt, that means there will not be any GST on such supply of goods or services or both. In other words, to say, exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which attracts nil rate or zero rate, which may be wholly exempt from the tax under section 11 or under section 6 of the Integrated Goods and Service Tax Act, and it also includes non-taxable supply. So when a supplier is involved in the exempt supplies, no ITC can be claimed. Normally these kind of suppliers who supplies the essential services, essential commodities to the people. To give some examples with respect to exempt supply, it may be like a supply of curd, fresh milk, fresh fruits, bread, etc. For frozen fruits, they are kept beyond the purview of the exempt supplies. Then the one who is involved in the exempt supply need not register under GST Act. Now let us make a distinction between a zero rate and exempt supply. In case of the zero rate supply, a supplier is involved in exportation of the goods or services or both, or he may indulge himself in supply of the goods or services or both to special economic zone or SEZ developer. Whereas exempt supply, it involves only the domestic business. That means it is within the country, or I mean to say it may be interstate supply of goods or services or both, or it may be like intrastate supply of goods or services or both. In case of zero rate supply, the supplier has to compulsorily register under the GST Act, whereas in case of exempt supply, he need not file return of income and he need not register himself under the GST. In case of zero rate supply, the supplier can claim the input tax credit, whereas in case of exempted supply, the supplier cannot claim the input tax credit. In case of zero rate supply, he has to maintain the records compulsorily as he wants to claim the ITC. In case of exempt supply, there is no compulsory maintenance of the records. In case of zero rate supply, the supplier issues issues of a normal tax invoice, whereas in case of exempt supply, the supplier issues a bill of supply. Now let's move to the nil rated supplies and non-taxable supplies. Here nil rated supplies means the goods which attract 0%. In other words, to say goods or services on which GST rate is 0% is applicable, called as nil rate supplies. Such goods are listed in the Schedule 1 of the GST Act. Then to give some examples for the nil rated supplies, it may be like a supply of salt, jaggery, cereals, live sheep, goats, birds, eggs, natural honey, etc. And such supplier cannot claim input tax credit. Here non-taxable supplies means these are the supplies which are kept beyond, which are kept out of the scope of GST. In other words, to say on the supply of such goods or services or both, no GST is leviable. So right now they are kept out of the purview of the GST. In the subsequent years or in the days to come, they may be covered under GST. To give examples of non-taxable supplies, it may be like a supply of petrol, alcohol for human consumption, etc. Now let this nil rate, zero rate supply, non-taxable supply and exempt supply, all they create some kind of confusion. So now let us make a distinction between these four, that is nil rated supply, zero rate supply, non-taxable supply and exempt supply. In case of nil rated supply, the rate of GST is totally 0%. In case of zero rate supplies, this is the supply of goods or services or both outside the country, or it may be supply of the goods or services made to a customer who is located in the SEZ zone and SEZ developers. Whereas a non-taxable supply means it's a supply of goods and services or both on which GST is not at all leviable. Whereas the exempt supply means it is a supply of goods or services or both that does not attract any rate of GST. In case of nil rated supply of goods or services or both, they are listed in the Schedule 1 of the GST Act. Whereas the zero rate supplies, they are executed under Section 16 of the IGST Act or Section 6. Whereas in case of non-taxable supply, the goods or services, they are kept outside the purview of the GST. Right now they are kept outside the purview, but in the days to come they may be covered. Whereas the exempt supply means the supply is declared as exempted by notification. That means the central government announces the certain goods or services as exempted. To give examples for the nil rated supply, it may be like grains, salt, jaggery. To give examples for zero rated supply, supplies to outside India, like it may be like France, or it may be like Brazil, or it may be like US, etc. So that means when the goods are moved from Indian territory to the overseas territory, it is called as exportation of the goods. Or it may be like supply of goods to a special economic zone. Then to give examples for the non-taxable supply, it may be like supply of petrol or alcohol, etc. Whereas in case of exempted supply, it is supply of the essential commodities like bread, fresh milk, fresh fruits and curd, etc. here. In case of nil rated supply, no input tax credit can be claimed by the supplier. Whereas in case of zero rated supply, ITC can be claimed by the supplier. In case of non-taxable supply, no ITC can be claimed. In case of exempt supply also, the supplier cannot claim the input tax credit. Now let us look into the abatements here. Here abatement is nothing but reduction or exemption and concession available in the taxable value of supply. A taxation, it is a taxation strategy which is usually used by various governments to encourage the specific activities such as investments in the capital equipment. So this is nothing but a technique followed by the government to attract the capital mobilization and to develop industrialization in the country. So the very purpose is to again increase the rate of the GDP also. So now let us look into the benefits of the abatement or reduction here. So now let us look into the benefits here. So strengthening of the business. Here strengthening of the business means supporting of the business here. When an established business benefits when a new business opens. So when one business is supported by another business, in order to support another business here, so abatements are to be announced by the government here. So the increase in the patrons allows other businesses to grow by investing in capital improvements and hiring new employees. Then the abatement will also help in reducing the unemployment. Sorry, it is by mistake, it is typed as employment. It is reduce unemployment. The increase of so how it will, the abatements leads to reduction of the unemployment. Now let us look into this. A new business creates several jobs. People employed by the business maybe use their income to build homes and buy goods and services, cars and other personal necessities. In turn, it will generate revenue to the government and it will help in generating the new employment opportunities. Then increase in tax revenue. When an abatement is offered, a city still benefits from increased tax revenues. Employees of a new business spend their money at local stores, which boosts the sales tax receipts to the government, and often build new homes, which increases the property tax receipts. These things occur without the need to increase the tax rates on the goods and services or both. Then flexible economic development tool. Abatements can be viewed as a flexible option compared to other economic development tools, since infrastructure improvements or risky building ventures could become fixed costs. Without the abatement, it may be financially unfeasible for the retailers to build on a certain area due to the features like underground pipelines, stormwater storage or floodplain. Then the tax receipts continue to grow long term after the abatement expires. Once a business is well settled within a community, the improvements and the facilities that are added can be taxed. The tax rate and the revenue from the developed property is higher than on undeveloped property. This creates a long-term source of revenue for the local government entities. You may be knowing even the government offers many abatements for the industries which wants to run its business in a industrially backward area. To give some examples here, you may be knowing that under section 80I to 80IA, 80IB, etc., where if the companies, they start their business in the northeastern part of the country, places like Mizoram, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, in northeast region, so where this is that is considered as industrially backward states. So in order to develop such the industrially developed such states, so the government provides abatements, like the people or the companies which start their business in such areas, they need not pay tax on their income for the first 10 years or maybe like 5 years. Even the government provides many benefit abatements to SEZ zones. Similarly, if you come to Karnataka, North Karnataka is industrially backward as compared to the Southern Karnataka. So the companies which starts their locations in the North Karnataka area, so they will be provided the benefits. So the abatements are the necessary for a certain period. So once the abatements are availed by companies, they will stand on their own and they will start paying tax to the government, and ultimately there will be increase in the tax revenue to the government here. So